So, what do you remember about the train ride, if anything?
Well, it was pretty spooky
Mm-hmm.
when you hop a train in the middle of the night and nothing but cattle in the cars, you know.
Yeah.
So you had to stay on the outside. You couldn't get in the car
Uh-huh.
until you got certain places where they
Right.
dump them off and pick up the empty ones.
What did you eat when you were
Well, you
riding?
didn't eat very good either, but you ate what you could get and you managed to get by.
Uh-huh. How long did it take for you to get to Detroit?
Gee, I don't know how, I call it maybe sort of in the middle of the day,
Middle of the day.
and I got in Detroit at night.
Uh-huh.
When I got there, I says to some gentleman, I says, how far is from here to Detroit? He says, you see that big light bulb flashing off and on? That's on top of the Penobscot building.
Penobscot building. Uh-huh.
And that's downtown Detroit. It's 28 miles.
So how'd you get there?
Walked all the way.
You walked. And where did you stay in your first, when you first got to
I
Detroit?
stayed with some people that used to live right next to my uncle where I lived with them
Mm-hmm.
for a while.
Okay.
So when I got in Detroit, he said, look me up, and I looked him up, and I stayed there for a while until I got a job washing dishes at Bowles Lunch, and I stayed there, got $10 a week in my room and board.
Uh-huh. And what did you do at Bowles?
Wash dishes.
Wash dishes. And, well, you're a pretty good dishwasher, I have to say.
Oh yeah, you're not recording that, are you?
Yes.
Be getting calls.
So, how long did you stay at Bowles?
I didn't stay too long because I didn't exactly like it. It was a one-arm band.
Right, right.
You get your food and bring it back, and you got a little tray here and a chair here.
Right.
So when you
Uh-huh.
got through, you took your, just left. They cleaned your dishes up after you.
Now, what year was this, best as you can remember it?
The best I can remember, well, I have to think about that for a while.
Was it the mid-30s?
No, it was down in the 30s. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
mid-30s. Was the Depression on?
If there was, I didn't know it.
You didn't sense that in
I
Detroit?
didn't lose anything.
Uh-huh. You had everything to gain.
Yeah, everything to gain, nothing to lose.
So, did you have any trouble finding work back then?
No, you had no trouble at all. You just walk in a place and they'd hire you.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any girlfriends back then?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh. A few girls?
I had girlfriends.
Uh-huh. And uh, so let's talk about the next job you had. Uh,
The next job I had from that was I worked in a book catalog hotel.
what did you do?
I was a waiter in the
Mm-hmm.
book catalog.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any famous
Oh,
customers?
very famous customers like Lou Gehrig, and the Yankees team always stayed in the book catalog when they came to town to play the Tigers.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Well, the Tigers is a pretty old baseball team, right?
Well, yeah, they just got out of the two World Series. It was St. Louis in 19, let's see what year was that, 34 and 35.
Uh-huh.
1934.
Okay, so we're in the mid-30s here.
Yeah.
Okay, and who else came to the book catalog hotel?
Oh, a lot of people. Sonia Haney
Sonia Henny.
and her ice skating thing.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't she a world champion ice skater?
She's a world champion ice skater. She
Right.
sure was.
And any politicians?
Politicians, yeah, lots of them.
Uh-huh.
And you, last time I remember the president, what did I say his name was?
Was his name Wendell Wilkie?
Wendell Wilkie, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was running for president.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked his party at the Cadillac.
Right. Who was he running against?
Hmm?
Who was Wendell
I think he
Wilkie?
was running against Harry Truman.
Uh-huh. Well, what did Wendell, didn't he give you a tip or something?
Yeah, he says, you drink? I said, well, a little bit. And take a couple of bottles of wine, whiskey that you like, and I did. That was my tip, you know.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And of course, Margarita took care of that.
Uh-huh. Now, Margarita was your first wife?
First wife.
Uh-huh. And when did you marry her?
I think that was 1920 or something like that.
Well, maybe it's more like the late 30s, right?
Late 30s, yeah.
Yeah, the late 30s. And what was her full name?
Margaret McLean.
Margaret McLean. And what did Margaret do how did you meet Margaret?
I met her when I worked at the Swedish restaurant where she came to.
Oh, she was a client there.
Yeah, with a client.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I met her, and I figured, well, I might as well got where I liked her pretty well, so
Mm-hmm.
we got married.
Uh-huh. And what did you like about her?
She was nice looking.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think about her drinking as being a problem.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't aware of that.
Right.
That was a mistake I made. She was an alcoholic, and nothing I could do to change it.
Uh-huh. What did she do? Did she work?
Yeah, she worked. She worked in a factory.
A factory.
Small factory where they made springs.
Springs. Uh-huh.
And I even went there to work a little bit
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
where she worked.
Now, when did you, where did you get married to Margaret?
Put Justice of Peace.
Justice of the Peace.
Yeah.
And where did you live? Where was the first place
The Field Hotel.
The Field Hotel.
On Jefferson.
Jefferson. Now, when did you get involved with haberdashery?
Well, when I had to take off work because I had appendicitis and it was operated on.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to stay out from my job for a while before they let me go back to work.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, I met some gentleman that we thinking the same way I was, putting the door in the entrance to another building where they had clothing too. That we figured it would make a better deal for us.
Mm-hmm.
So
What'd you sell there?
we sold everything you sell in the haberdashery: hats,
Mm-hmm.
shirts,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that.
Did you do alterations?
No, we didn't do none of that.
And did you fit people with shirts and?
Well, it's their size. We give them the size they ask for. You know?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Was it a good business?
It would have been, but in the meantime, I was called up to go into service. So I had to take my physical.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, I went and had my physical and passed it.
Okay.
Given the time to report for service.
This is World War II?
World War II.
Did you have any other brothers in the service at the time?
Yeah, but let's get this finished.
Okay.
If you want to stop.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I'm doing all the talking. Okay, so tell us about your going into the service or getting ready to go.
Yeah, I went and had my physical and I passed it. They gave me a date to report for service. But the war ended 3 days before I was to report.
Oh, lucky
So
you.
I looked out. I didn't have to.
Mm-hmm.
I went down. Didn't even have to go down. I just stayed home. So then that's when I met another sweet gal.
Mm-hmm.
And her name was Billy.
Billy.
Billy and Jack.
Uh-huh. It was Billy and Jack,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah.
And, well, did you get divorced from Margaret?
Yes, I got divorced. She wouldn't go out with me unless I did.
Uh-huh. So, and where was Billy from?
She was from Alpena, Michigan.
Uh-huh. And where did you first meet her?
At work, she worked at the same place I did.
Uh-huh.
She came there before I did.
Uh-huh.
I went there in 1941.
1941.
Mm-hmm.
And how'd you get your job with U.S. Rubber?
I just went down and they were looking for help. I went down and pulled me out of the line and put me to work.
Mm-hmm. And what did you do there?
I built tires
Mm-hmm.
for 39 years.
39 years. And what was it like to build a tire for the war? Were you patriotic?
It was interesting. I liked my job, so when you like your job, that's 90% of the
Mm-hmm.
of the game. So I stayed there until 1980, and I retired.
Uh-huh.
That was it.
That was it. And were a lot of women working at the?
Just as many women as was men.
Just as many women.
Yeah, of course, there's other jobs for them, you know.
Right. But didn't the war have something to do with the women in the workplace? Didn't they all?
Well, yeah, we had to hire more women to try to do what jobs that men was no men to do.
Mm-hmm. What did you do for fun after work?
Oh yeah, you do what the normal thing to do. You go out and go in the bar, maybe have a drink of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
But mainly, I roomed with another guy. I roomed with a private family.
Oh, okay.
And
You had a room.
And so did the other guy that was with me.
Uh-huh.
So we both stayed there for quite a while. And this family had about 4 daughters.
Uh-huh. Uh-oh.
Well, I didn't get involved with none of them.
Oh, okay.
But some of my friend married one of them.
Oh, okay.
Till this day, I guess he still lives with her.
Did you listen to music back then?
Oh yeah, big band.
Big band.
Big band.
Who was your favorite?
Who was my favorite? Benny Goodman.
Benny Goodman.
Yeah.
How about female singers?
Female?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there were so many good ones. Doris Day was my favorite.
Doris Day. How about Judy Garland?
Judy, no, she was too young.
Too young. Okay. So tell us about your first son that was born, you and Billy had.
Our first son was born in 1948.
Mm-hmm. What was that like? Where were you living at the time?
At the time, I was taking care of an apartment house for my rent.
Mm-hmm.
For what rent I took, I had to clean the back and front steps and keep it clean. Take care of the furnace.
You were the super.
Yeah.
You were the super. And where did you live in the apartment?
We lived downstairs. It was a full apartment.
Mm-hmm.
So we stayed there until we found the house we liked, and we bought the house and moved to Berkeley. We've been there ever since.
Uh-huh. Fantastic. Okay, let's hear some more about living on Ashland. Tell us where you lived and what it looked like there.
Well, it was a nice apartment. It was just in the basement. I didn't care too much about that, but we didn't stay there that long. I think we stayed there about 3 years until we finally went out and started looking for a home.
Uh-huh. And wasn't it on a river or something? Didn't we used to?
Detroit River is just a little ways from there.
Mm-hmm.
and we we didn't go in the water there because it was nothing but where the sewage stuff went down through there. So we didn't care about that.
And what about that old man that lived behind you in Ashland?
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Well, he ate and fed himself, but he was a little bit nasty about it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't too clean.
Right.
No, Neoma didn't like that. So
And what about, didn't he make decoy ducks?
he made his own ducks, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sold them for that's why he made his living.
Did they do a lot of duck hunting in Detroit at the
Oh, sure.
Yeah. What was Detroit like at that time?
When we first went there, Detroit wasn't a bad city. You know, Hudson was the big store they had there, and people went there if nothing more than to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
There were nice people usually came
Mm-hmm.
there.
It was a very upscale store.
Upscale store, yeah.
Right. And what about the city of Detroit? Was it
Well, I like
wasn't
the city of Detroit, yeah. And we liked the city. Neoma and I both liked the city of Detroit. But as time went along, things didn't shape out too good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when we found a place in Berkeley, Michigan, we bought it and stayed there 60-some years.
Wow. What kind of car were you driving when you were living on
I
Ashland?
usually drive General Motors car.
General Motors. Mm-hmm. And specifically, what was your first car that you had when you a Ford?
I paid $400 for it.
What color was it?
Black.
Black. And how long did you keep that car?
I think I kept it about 4 years and sold it for what I paid for it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Because it was a good car and